Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Forever Classic Podcast, the show seeking enlightenment through video games, films, and other geek culture. This week I have with me the writer extraordinaire, Alex McCumbers. So this episode we're going to talk about some gaming news around the world, some games releasing this month, some cool anime to check out, some current games being played, and then we're going to tie in to an E3 pre-show.
Because E3 is coming up soon. We're actually filming this 3 hours before the first press event. A lot of people are already on the show floor.
Yes, and hopefully this will be pumped out, cut, and released soon enough that you can be listening to this and relating it to what's going on through E3.
It'll be fun, I think, because we're going to have a lot of predictions and stuff, too, at the very end.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of base to touch with the E3 coming up. Everything's really exciting and more as we get closer and closer.
Biggest news opportunity in games, unfortunately, for better or worse.
Yeah, I was just reading about some of the history about it this morning, and I think it was 95, where the PlayStation was released in marked as $299, and I think that was $100 under the Sega Genesis. Or
Yeah, it was way cheaper than a lot of systems, and there's a lot of interesting E3 based history. One of my favorite stories is whenever Metal Gear Solid 2 was announced, it wasn't at the show, right? But the trailer launched during the show period, right? So literally it stole the show. Like everybody kept watching the Metal Gear Solid 2 trailer and not giving a shit about what was going on actually at E3.
I'm hoping
it's a monumental franchise.
And that's one of the things I'm hoping about is some news from Hideo for E3. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
Just as a quick recap, we have the things we left off with last episode that we wanted to point back out were like the Angry Birds film gross profit, the Destiny budget.
Specifically for Destiny, I've got a list of the most expensive video games to develop, which is, of course, it's Wikipedia, and video game data is not really kept very well. I actually talked to a guy at PAX who specializes in video game related data. Like, if you want to know anything about data, that's the guy to talk to. He was in the extra credit panel. I'm not sure of his name off the top of my head. But according to this list, we all kind of know Destiny to be one of the most expensive games ever made. For the longest time, it was rumored to have a budget of $500 million. And I always thought that number was extremely high, especially for the game we got. I mean, it has its fan base, and I kind of like playing it every now and again. But is that really a $500 million game? I don't really think so. And back in, I think, 2014, 2015, there was an interview with a different member of Bungie who said, no, we had nowhere near that. According to this list, it was about $140 million budget at the time. Factoring in inflation, it rounds out to about 142. Now, to put that in perspective, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, whenever it was made, had a budget of 250. And that's including development and marketing. And with inflation, that's the top-rated, most expensive game to make at $279 million.
Ooh.
So according to this list, we haven't really gotten to the $500 million range yet, which I find interesting because I figured we'd be there.
Well, I mean, with everything coming up, we have the new CGI stuff, which you would expect to be more expensive, but now that, skill sets have improved to this point in the workforce, it's almost seeming like all this cost that was high is now dropping and making the more fancy, more expensive things more easy to attain and cheaper.
That's a good point, because a lot of this software like Unity and Unreal is ridiculously powerful, and you can use it for free in a lot of ways. Now, how much was this Angry Birds film? According to IMDb, is $73 million.
$73 million cost to make it, or that it made?
Budget.
So
including marketing and development and paying the actors and such, that's roughly what it would be. So just to put that into perspective, in the gaming world, 73, I said? Yeah, 73. Final Fantasy 13, including inflation. Like, it was $65 million at the time to make in 2009. With inflation in today's standards, that's $73 million. This proves that you can spend $73 million and still make shit. I thought Final Fantasy 13 was one of the worst games, period. Not only in the franchise, but just altogether. That game's horrible.
Oh, I did not like 13. I have friends who raved about it, but they don't like the old style Final Fantasies at all either.
Right.
So I'm finding a lot of a line between the old style turn-based to the new style 13 plus.
Right. It's kind of funny because Square must have known they kind of fucked up because they had all these like ridiculously expensive, very high quality assets, and they're like, "Man, this didn't make nearly as much money. We'll make another one." So they made 13.2 and 13.3 Lightning Returns, which I hear Lightning Returns isn't a terrible game, but it's nowhere near what we should have gotten.
All right.
Because I was super hyped for that game. I bought it day one.
Really?
Yeah, I spent like $80 on it.
Ooh. I've avoided some of them because I noticed lots of pitfalls happening around things I was really anticipating.
Yeah.
So I ended up watching a lot of people play like Final Fantasies, a couple other big name games in between here and there, and they just weren't the things that tickled my fancy after I got to watch them. So I ended up avoiding lots of stuff.
With my favorite franchises, I have a tendency to get whatever the newest thing is. So like Fire Emblem, I always get the newest one. Final Fantasy, I always get the newest one, for better or worse. It's really spurned me here recently. But 15 I thought was good, and I waited 10 years for it. Like, I really had a good time with it. The ending sucked, but whatever.
I still haven't got to play it, but I've seen lots of stuff on it, and it looks really fun. Especially all the cooking memes. All the cooking memes got me, like, cracking up.
I've got a new recipe! I love Ignis. Like, that game, it proves that the Final Fantasy franchise and the developers are really getting in touch with character development. Because those characters are all, like, really well written, and they have some really powerful moments, and I just love all four of our beautiful boys doing beautiful things in a beautiful world.
Yeah, and I can't remember the blonde one. Prompto, yeah. I was watching the anime. Man, Prompto has a sad-ass backstory, too. Like, going into it.
He was, like, chubby and then ran his guts out to make himself even, like, worth talking to Noctis.
Yeah.
And even in the game, like, he has moments like, I shouldn't be here. Like, I'm not as cool as you guys. I'm not a part of this society. And they're like, no. You're more part of this than anybody else.
And see, that's human relation, and it's awesome. Like, those things.
Yeah, they do some really, like, it's not just story from a fantasy's perspective. It's a very human story.
Yeah, and that's something that'll pull and anchor me into anything. Like, if you can give me a reason to feel what that person's feeling, or an inkling of it, like, I can step into those shoes and understand them, and then I'm hooked.
Yeah,
that's it. Like, I'm in that world, and it is part of my world.
That's the reason I like really well written anime and such too, because I'm very easy to suspend disbelief. Like, I'm the type of person, I'm really critical about games, but I'm not as critical on, like, shows and movies, so I can get pulled in really easily.
Same. I can get pulled into stuff pretty easy. Being on the back end of filming and theater and stuff, I can be really critical of stuff if I see something done excessively poorly. But if it's done with a poorer way than it could have been, and it has a reason for it, like if everything resolves out the way it should, then yeah, awesome. Like, that's great, and I'm not gonna think that it was just some piss poor something. It's gonna be like, okay, they did this thing, but it worked perfect, and that's exactly what that person would have done.
So now that we've kind of touched base on some of the numbers and stuff we missed last time, we are going to try to do a bit more recording as much as we can. I know one of the most irritating things for me is when you're really into a podcast and, like, oh, okay, it's going to come out Mondays, and then Monday comes around and you're like, where's the podcast? Like, we're going to get to a point where we can start having a schedule, and once that schedule is set in stone, I think we're going to have a lot more fun. And it'll feel a little like we're still learning as we go.
Yeah. We don't have a set runtime still. We don't have a set day that we release. I think we would have released a little sooner, but, like, for me, my car had problems, so I had to stop and take care of that beyond everything else. That delayed
Zach is doing all of our production and releasing and such. I'm just here to provide the information and to discuss things because I'm doing all my, like, journalism and working and trying to move. So I haven't even touched any sort of audio editing.
Right. And we have, we come together with two different type of skill sets. They overlap a little bit, but, like, you are with your journalism, you've been in the gaming world, indie dev, game dev world for a very long time. So you have connections, people you have early access to some knowledge that you can sometimes share and sometimes you can't.
Like, a lot of times, too, I've actually talked to the people behind some of these games, and those conversations I kind of pull from every now and again.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. For me, like I have my hands in a lot of different things, so I have just a lot of random viewpoints, and I can discuss things with people who either love or hate this kind of stuff for both comparison, contrasting, like thoughts on all these subjects.
So as we move forward, we'll be growing not only as podcast developers, but as people too. Like we're gonna be slowly getting better over time. But let's hear some gaming news, Zach. So check it out. ARMS on Switch, right?
Yes.
It's cool.
It is.
I was kind of surprised because they've been doing the global test punch. They did it last weekend and the weekend before, and so you could jump in and essentially play like a party match, which was not all of the characters but most of them, and it was just battles and like free for all battles and volleyball mini games, and it was just kind of a party mode that like matched you up into random things constantly.
I didn't know they had volleyball.
My biggest complaint, yeah, it's like they set up a volleyball and then you basically play volleyball with the ARMS mechanics. But the biggest downfall to this test was it was only an hour long. Like you had to log in when that hour started, and that was the time frame you got to play. Once that hour was over with, it kicked you out.
Oh wow.
Which is a very Nintendo thing to do. But I gotta say, ARMS works surprisingly well, both in portable and television mode, and like motion controls work for some reason. Like they don't feel perfect, but they work really well. Because when you punch holding the Joy-Cons, if you turn, it like changes the angle of your fist, right? And it feels natural. The only thing that's weird when holding the Joy-Cons and doing motion control is switching targets, because I would get into some fights and not be able to switch targets fast enough, and that would be the cause of my downfall. Luckily, this game actually works kind of like Smash Brothers. It has a lot of different control schemes. I did a piece on it on Marooner's Rock that details out each control map, but you can use a Pro Controller, you can use a single Joy-Con like horizontally, so you can play two-player on a single portable unit with a friend, or you can play it on the TV or whatever. You can hook it up to the grip controller, you can use the Bluetooth controllers that Metal Jesus just showed off, made by 8BitDo, I believe. They recently did a patch, and there's a couple different ways that you can get it working on the Switch. So I imagine that'll be playable with ARMS as well. And you know what? It's fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it looked a little cartoony at first, or a little silly, and then I got to watch some of the gaming, like some of them play. Like I think it was the girl with noodle arms and the
Min Min.
Min Min, and I don't know. I keep thinking the guys like their take on Little Mac, and I can't remember what his name was either.
Oh, he's the main character. He's like Spring Man or Spring Boy or something.
Spring Man. Yeah, I got to watch their fight and like the different customizable arms. Like it's like Metabots.
Yeah, it is very Metabots-like.
It reminds me of Metabots, the punching game.
Yeah, dude, I used to love Metabots.
Me
like
too.
You would get the little toys and you would like switch the parts and stuff. Like there was an RPG on GBA I used to be really into.
Yeah, the anime is what got me to it when I was younger, like cartoon anime.
Yeah, I used to watch the cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh god, I haven't thought about that in years.
Right? And for me, like, so as a side note to everybody, if you don't know what Metabots is, it was an old anime, old 90s cartoon about kids with these like fighting robots. And what happened is they could challenge other people or they could buy these parts, but if you challenged somebody, you could basically bet a part of your robot against theirs. And if you won, they were able to claim that part and upgrade their own robot with it. Or just use it as something to switch out.
It was like this fighting ladder battle style anime. I mean, it was it didn't really have a whole lot of character development, and it's a very basic like, oh, you're my rival, I need to beat you kind of show. Like, but it was fun. I really like the art style and the setup.
Yeah, the concept of just having your customizable robot through battle is what got me watching
Which was explored later in other works. Custom Robo on the GameCube. That was a game that Nintendo I really wish they would bring back. It was basically high quality Metabots. And then there's the Gunpla anime, which is basically a Gundam based model thing where they do the same thing. So there's been a lot of that style anime. Beyblade was the same way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that originated from way back with Mega Man for me. You know, as Mega Man beat the bosses, he got part of their power to his gun. And that was a development that kept tying back into more stuff that I treasured as a child.
Now, do you think this kind of resurgence back when Metabots was popular was kind of based on the whole BattleBots craze?
Oh, yeah. I mean, BattleBots is still just like this known cult name to things. Like, you can talk about BattleBots to some people, and they're extremely excited, and they'll ramble on. Some will just give you a quick mention of,
it's like robotic wrestling. Like, it's crazy.
Because a lot of them had, what, like
saw blades and shit. Like, I used to watch it with my dad, and they would have this giant T-Rex looking robot.
Yeah.
And it had a giant claw and a flamethrower. I don't remember what they called it, but whenever that thing come out, like, shit got real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that shit was hype as hell. Like, I watched a clip from a recent match, and it was crazy. Like, the robots have gotten faster.
Really? I haven't seen anything recent. I thought it died out.
And I think it was a fairly popular show in Japan, too. I think they had their own thing going for that. So that might have been why we got that style of anime and game development, and it kind of seeped into pop culture.
Influencing.
But yeah, ARMS, like, I didn't think I would like ARMS at all. I was like, oh, it's like Wii Boxing with a Splatoon style thing. But god damn it, Nintendo proves once again that they can take a mechanic, a set of mechanics, and make it like they Nintendoize it. And they just make it great because it's a super fun game. I had a lot of fun just messing with it and learning how to play and kind of like getting into my opponent's heads and stuff. And if they end up sending me a copy for review, like, I'm all over it. I'm super pumped for it.
Absolutely. And just as a note, it's not the old Wii Boxing where you just button mashed and threw your hands in the air real quick. Like,
there's a lot of strategy.
Yeah, because you can block, dodge, jump, like, not attack, like feign an attack to the side.
The mechanics. You also have the like character nuances and then all the different arms like you were talking about. And there's just a lot of customability. So I'm excited to see what they do with actual competitive matches for it.
Yeah, I'm sure there will just be this big, crazy fight that's flashy, or it'll be a stalemate, like really like staring down your opponent from a virtual world.
Oh, and just kind of like fencing.
Yeah, like getting in their head, like those little air jabs, like not quite hitting each other, and then something crazy, and then back to it, or just insanity the whole time.
I'll be excited to see how like top tier players do it. There's got to be a tournament actually at E3 because Nintendo has just announced this thing that they're calling Nintendo Versus, which is weird because Nintendo has always kind of shied away from like the competitive nature of some of their games, especially in the Smash community. There was recently a major tournament won by, I think it was Hungrybox. He's a very famous Smash player, and he gave a speech. It was like, listen, we're here, we're doing this. No matter what Nintendo says or think or how they will not support us, we're going to keep doing this. And it's going to get bigger and bigger every year. And it has. And now finally Nintendo announced, I think it was a day or two ago, that they are kind of doing this, I don't know if it's like a website, there's a Twitter. It's called Nintendo Versus is what they're branding it as. So I think they might actually be trying to capture this like high-level play thing. Because they have been shown to be kind of interested in esports with the Switch announcement with Splatoon 2, what they've kind of done before with some of their tournaments like E3 and such. So I think we might actually be seeing a different Nintendo, and not only the fact that the Switch is like a different market and there's kind of a different mindset to how they're putting games on it, but I think we're also going to see Nintendo kind of react to how people play their games a little better, which is great because maybe they'll leave Let's Players the fuck alone.
Oh, what?
Yeah, what? Stop copywriting stuff, please.
Yeah, no, like, Let's Play gets everybody else into things. I don't see why they would punk that kind of thing out. But for them to get...
As dumb as it sounds on paper, it created basically a job out of nothing.
Really?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, I guess more jobs. Mm-hmm. But kind of taking away the fun that you get to have when you're not at a job.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of streamers about this because a lot of my friends who are professional streamers, they make a living at it, they stream 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and I always ask them, like, when does it get boring for you? Like, how long does it take before you have to either switch games or try something different? And a lot of them, it like comes and goes. If they're really passionate about the one type of game they're like known for and what their audience kind of watches for, usually it doesn't burn out as quickly. But you'll see a lot of the high level Twitch streamers try to get out of their comfort box and try some different things. Like my buddy Mason that streams Mario Maker and Kaizo and stuff. He's been doing a lot of like music streams just to kind of like flex his creative muscles. He's already got a really loyal audience, so he can kind of afford to do that.
Nah, that's a big thing, is once you build up your audience, that's when you can really start experimenting with stuff and get people to be like, yeah, like, I like what you're doing, not just the thing you're doing.
Right. The awesome thing is once a streamer gets to that point where they're either right before they get the subscription button or right immediately in that like early phase, that's when you start having people come in and be more interested with the person and less about what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's honestly why I subscribe to people. It's not because of what they're doing. It's because I enjoyed watching them stream stuff or talk with them. Especially if they talk back to me in their stream. Like, I'm much more engrossed in what's going on.
Yeah, it's really engaging to be able to talk to somebody like a performer live in that sort of sense, especially if they're like super skilled. My favorite person to watch and discuss that sort of thing is Strizer86, who's I think his name's Mark. He lives up in Canada, but he does ridiculous speed runs on like especially Castlevania and Mega Man. And I just love asking him like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Like, what's the strat here? What's going through your mind as you're doing this?" And like, we'll discuss things through the entire stream. Like, it's great. Now, speaking of streamers, tell me about this Friday 13th nonsense that happened a couple weeks back, Zach.
Friday the 13th was finally released on console, and everything has... So Friday the 13th has been released. It's come out for everybody at the same time. Kickstart backers have been upset because the game wasn't given access to them first. Or they weren't given access to the game first, rather. For anybody who does Kickstarting, you usually get that access, get the taste, get to play a little bit before anybody else because you supported it when it was nothing.
Right.
So that's a standard like reward for you. Like, I gave you my money to help you finish what you're doing so that I can play it and be engrossed in this thing because it's something I care, I'm passionate about, or I just really want.
And this timing is not just Friday the 13th. This is kind of a Kickstarter problem in general. I know when Mighty Number 9 came out, this was an issue.
But not only that, the games come out, the servers seem to be very broken for things. There's a lot of times that when you try to queue up, I think it's as a certain Jason, it'll freeze up and kick everybody out. You get into the game, and it just boots everybody from the world again.
Not only that, but have you seen some of the like character model glitches and stuff? And have you seen the like scared face models of the campers?
I've not seen...
It's Uncanny Valley, like Nightmare Fuel hilarious. It's scary in the wrong way. Like, because Jason looks awesome, and some of the environments looks pretty good too. But like the graphical fidelity in the campers especially is like really poorly done.
Yeah, I haven't seen them graphically. I've just seen that, I mean, Jason's overpowered, and that's how it should be, but that he's way, way overpowered in a lot of instances that I've seen, which fits
There's some balance issues, I imagine. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just starting. There's always balance issues.
Right.
I've read a lot of cries for help about that. And, of course, just not being able to get into a game. Or you get into a game, start, and your world shuts down. And that's...
But, yeah, this is crazy because, like, it was released early for streamers. Press didn't get it when streamers got it. Kickstarter backers, especially, as you said, were pretty upset. But, like, so here's my question for you, Zach. What's the moral implications of releasing to even passing up press, which normally gets it early? Because I think the Kickstarter backers should definitely have it before even press have it.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a low blow for that studio. Like, that was a really dumb, late in the game mistake, in my opinion.
I totally agree with that opinion. Because to me, if you are taking this money on good faith, I mean, whether they did or didn't promise that they would get it first is one thing. But the fact that you didn't want to give them that early reward or some sort of take on it for supporting you in the beginning, that's just you taking. You're not giving anything back. That's like you saying, like, I want to take your money and give you this game. Whatever this game is, like, you're going to take it for whatever money you're going to give me.
It definitely put a sour taste in the entire community that was behind this game. Like, the people who, even when the game was, like, super buggy and felt like an early access title, that community on, like, the Discord servers and stuff were very adamant about how this was a good game. You just kind of have to learn it, and it gets better over time, the more you know about it. So those players they were all already invested. Why they didn't get it early, I have no idea. Like, who called the shot on this?
I don't know, honestly. And that is going to bring me to saying that Dead by Daylight, which is also releasing onto its console soon, might just completely take the cake on it because it's had a solid
Which is
reception.
funny. Yeah, it's been out for what, a year, 6 months? It's been out for a while on PC. And whenever it was announced, like, it was announced kind of on the tail end of this Kickstarter for Friday the 13th. So apparently they had very similar ideas at the time. It's funny because that footage came out and I was like, wow, this looks like the Friday the 13th thing. That kind of sucks. And then Dead by Daylight slowly became kind of what they were shooting for, but in a better fashion. They're already releasing, like, different styles of killers, so the asymmetric multiplayer is just a little more interesting. They've released a bunch of different updates. Here recently, I think they're putting out a new killer. And then, as you said, the console version comes out here soon. So you're going to have both of these situations, a really well-known franchise and just a really well-made game kind of competing. And I'm kind of interested to see who comes out on top.
Me too. I mean, Dead by Daylight is not 100% known by everybody, but when you say Friday the 13th, everybody knows horror genre, Jason Voorhees, guy with the hockey
Sound
mask.
design. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a shame too, because Friday the 13th had, like, everything was in place. It was being marketed in the best way. Adam Sessler, one of the guys who inspired me to be a journalist to begin with, was a big part of the development and, well, I wouldn't say development, but like the marketing and the press relations and all of that sort of thing. He was a major kind of focal point for this series, even in the Kickstarter videos, which is why I was so excited about it. I was like, wow, Adam Sessler thinks it's good. It's probably going to be great. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, at least at the moment. I think it'll evolve to be better. But, like, not only that, but they had the same actor that did the Jason Voorhees and many of the movies do the motion capture and, like, the voice acting and stuff. And then they had, like, I think the same sound designer worked on a bunch of the movies and also worked on this game. So, like, everything was there to make this excellent release, and something fell apart somewhere.
I agree, and this makes me sad because this is, as of right now to me, I'm categorizing Friday the 13th under bad games made from movies.
Yeah, as of now, that's where it falls.
And I don't want that. I want to see good games made from movies. Even if the movie sucked, I want a good game to come from it, because that you get more exploratory in the world if you have a game, you know, with a movie, because a book's going to have everything you need, everything you would want. A movie's going to show you
script put into a novel form.
Yeah, you know, the movie's going to have everything that you need to know and could really want more of a taste of, but the game's going to let you explore all that on your own.
Right. Because at the end of the day, video games prove to be one of the most immersive art mediums because it's multiple levels. It's sound design, it's art direction, it's interactivity. So to have that sort of interaction with, like, a movie franchise, something that you're already pretty into, is just excellent if it's done right.
Right.
There's been examples here and there of movie games that were pretty good. Interestingly enough, WayForward, the people behind the Shantae series, and a bunch of really well-known 3DS indie titles, and they did the DuckTales remake as well. They're doing a pixelized, like, 16-bit-ish style Mummy game, which looks nothing like the movie, which is cool. I'm okay with that. That movie doesn't appeal to me much, but it's weird because they kind of take the idea of the film and it looks like they're going to be doing kind of their own style on it. It looks like a Metroidvania is what the initial screenshot looks like. So I don't know. You have two different ways to approach these sort of things.
That sounds really cool, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never heard anything about that, so I'm excited to hear more on it. Now, is this going to take place like Tom Cruise style Mummy, or are we talking Brendan Fraser style Mummy?
From what I've gathered, it's the Tom Cruise style Mummy. Like, it's in working with as a promotion to the film. Because if you notice, that film's put a lot of money into marketing. There's commercials everywhere. It pops up every 20 minutes on my YouTube. And then, of course, WayForward apparently is doing a game about it. And, like, everybody in the comments when this was announced, I think yesterday, the day before on Twitter, was like, wow, this looks really cool. Why the Mummy, though?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's going to make them a good check, and they get to flex their muscles in, like, a license, which is kind of fun, I guess.
Yeah. You know, that's a great stepping stone for things. But also on that, I'm wondering if that has something to tie into with the Universal Monsterverse. That's
what I've heard. I've heard that's the kind of focus of this new movie.
Yeah, as like the start and the tip of it, as well as Dracula coming up, or 2014.
Yeah, there's going to be, a Dracula one, a Wolfman. I don't know. There's going to be a bunch of them.
Yeah, and it's and this is just me starting to ramble on a tangent, but the MonsterVerse is something to look forward to, and I'm sure I'll talk more about later with Alex, is Universal's got the rights to all the horror movies. Or, at least...
all the classics.
Yeah, or at least most of them. So they're going to take those and put them into a type of universe. Like you have the Marvel universe, the EU universe. So we're going to have Universal creating this dark monster horror-y movie, maybe even action-y, knowing it's Universal, it could go either way. But it could be exciting to see how all these old horror flicks tie together, or how they do a standalone and told from a different approach.
And that's a conversation for another day, because I actually wanted to I want to bring up at some point, if the whole having a cinematic universe and tying films together, I wonder how long it is before that becomes stale, because it's almost tropey at this point.
It really is. We're having lots and lots of re-releases of the same thing, and it's not to say that they're bad, but we're
still making money.
Yeah, you're still making money. You're still entertaining people. You're doing your job, and it's going great. But how fresh can it be going forward?
Yeah, in 20 years, will we look back on the Marvel Cinematic Universe and be like, you know what, that wasn't as good as we thought? Or even the DC Universe, or whatever universe ends up happening between now and then. Like, how is that going to stand as a literary film piece years from now? That's always that's my thought process, especially for games that, like, score really high, like Breath of the Wild. What are we going to think about Breath of the Wild in 10, 15 years? I don't know. We'll find out.
Right. And now, moving on, we have Monster Hunter Double Cross, or as you see the title, Monster Hunter XX, coming to Switch in Japan.
I'm so pumped.
Yes. Me and Alex are both big, avid fans of the Monster Hunter series. I didn't get into it till later, but Monster Hunter has been something fantastic. It was a brand new world to me, and my old roommates finally hooked me into it with the advent of the 3DS. So
starting on Monster Hunter Ultimate 3.
Yep. Oh my God. We played so many hours of that too. So
and the
many
thing
hours.
is you've probably put more hours into as far as actual counts, you've put more time into Monster Hunter probably about like 3 or 4 times than I have.
Really?
It's just I've been with the series for such a long time that, like, I feel like I'm more ingrained into the franchise, and you're more ingrained into, like, the actual playing.
Yes. I can say that. I'm getting into that franchise end of it, though, like starting to really love all the development and the different stuff from all the different universes of it.
Yeah, because I picked it up as like a discount game on the PS2. I was in a major city down south, and I found it at a Kmart for like $15. And I'm like, wow, this guy's got a big sword. I want to play that. And then I picked it up, and you could, like, swing with the analog stick, so different movements on the right analog stick would do different attacks. And I thought that was really unique, and it was hard as shit. Like, that game is ridiculously tough.
Yeah.
And I only got to, like, the Rathalos or something. Like, I never got farther than that. And I was using a Game Shark to get better items.
Yeah, no, the game requires you to get good real quick.
Yeah,
like,
it's all about knowing the animal and what how many frames are in an animation, so to speak, and where that hitbox is, and how you can exploit that, and what weapons have different effects. And I mean, it's a really complex game, and I think the difficulty is part of the reason why it became so huge, because the people who were learning the game and actually becoming better and better and seeing success, that's a major triumph, and that's a really hard feeling to recreate. That's why Dark Souls is so popular.
Yeah, no, the hard level of Dark Souls has sold me on so much of that franchise. Even while it was bad, like, I don't consider 2 to be a great Dark Souls game, but I still played it.
It's still a good game.
Yeah, I still played it. It was still hard. It was still great and challenging. So.
Yeah. Now, as of right now, which this could change within the next day or two, there's no word on whether Monster Hunter Double Cross on the Switch is coming to US. So we're not 100% sure if it's going to. I imagine it will, but I don't know. I'm trying to hold myself until Capcom officially says that it is, because I might try to import it, because the Switch is region free. You can play whatever on it, and you can download from the eShop if you just make a Japanese account. So, I mean, you can get it day one, or you can import it through like PlayAsia or whatever. For those of us that have been playing Monster Hunter's generation, that shouldn't be much of an issue, because a lot of those item symbolisms and stuff like is already ingrained into us. but it would just make it really hard because there's a lot of text.
Yeah, and text in a foreign language is a learning curve to play if you don't understand that language.
Now, you know what's even more exciting, Zach? Remember how Monster Hunter 3 was our jam because we could play 3DS and Wii U? Mm-hmm. That's back. You can play Switch and 3DS. There's a 3DS version.
Oh, man.
And which it's been out for a while now, I think, actually. It'll connect to the Switch version. You can play with other players. I don't know if you can do it online like that, but definitely locally you can play with other people on the Switch, 3DS, whatever system you have. And that's awesome because that was my favorite feature.
Yeah, same. That's why I did it. It was me, Tanner, one of the other people in our house, and then Travis setting, like, all three of us on a 3DS, but Travis was on his Wii U in the house so we could use him as the main player and reference his screen while we were fighting. Yep. And also sitting beside each other could flip screens to each other and kind of, like, coordinate much better. But
the tactics got so much better.
Yeah, they did. And then with, is it 4 that you could play online?
Yeah, 4 is when you could started playing online with the 3DS itself.
Yes. Now, I want to see that come to being crossover between Switch and 3DS playing online. Like, no restrictions. Like, I want to see that.
Because we know the way the Switch is going to handle voice is asinine and stupid.
Really?
It connects to a cell phone, and you use the voice connector through that. And there's, like... If you want to know how it works, look up the Splatoon headset, because the map on how it connects into stuff is just dumb. But I imagine a lot of people are going to be playing that game using something like Discord or Mumble or TeamSpeak or whatever. And that's exciting, because I played Dauntless, which is kind of a Monster Hunter spiritual successor being made by a different studio on PC. And I played that with a headset, and there was four players. We each had our own headsets, and we were talking and communicating. And that kind of changed how I played Monster Hunter. And, like, I'm excited for that in an actual Monster Hunter game.
Yes. Oh, that will be very, very important. Because right now you don't have a way to talk. And you've been doing it for years without being able to talk to your friends. Like, just kind of, like, waving. And being able to be, like... Yeah, having that, like, talk, being like, oh, shit, I'm in Area 10, and the monster's in Area 1, and he's healing and sleeping now. I gotta start all over.
The coordination is going to be so much better, and I think it's going to actually, like, I think it's going to bring the community together in ways we haven't seen yet. Because a lot of your Monster Hunter communities are based in, let's go meet up here during the week or whatever and play some Monster Hunter. I know in Seattle that's a big thing with Kelsey and Cody's store, the Pink Gorilla stores. They do a weekly or bi-weekly Monster Hunter meetup where they just get a bunch of people in the community and just play Monster Hunter with each other.
I don't know. I'm just excited. I want more news on it. Like, I want more news to come from E3.
Like, as soon as that press release comes out, I'm all over it.
Oh, yeah. No, like, I have to work when a lot of these press releases are happening, so I won't be able to see them live, but you bet your ass that I will be staying up a little extra later, getting up a little extra earlier to watch these press releases, watch the entire conference from beginning to end to understand what's going on, and see what I can be excited about and what is not going to be released for me yet.
Yeah. Keep an eye on maroonersrock.com. Shameless plug. Because we're going to have a lot of content. We've got 3 or 4 writers at the event right now. They're preparing for their various appointments. The EA thing starts in a couple hours. But yeah, Monster Hunter is crazy. Like, it's crazy popular. It kind of saves systems. Because when it hit the PSP was barely selling. And then Monster Hunter came out, and things like Final Fantasy started coming to the PSP. And all of a sudden, the PSP was like an icon in Japan. It showed up in pop culture itself because it was just selling so well because of things like Monster Hunter. And it kind of saved the 3DS, too. It hit the 3DS, and then it became ridiculously popular in Japan.
Yeah. And
so here we have the Nintendo Switch selling 3 million units in the middle of fucking March. How many are going to be out there when Monster Hunter comes out?
Yeah, because, that Monster Hunter crowd has probably not doubled down on those units yet, so they're going to add to that.
Right. Those who don't have a Switch are going to pick up Monster Hunter on the 3DS or buy the Switch for Monster Hunter.
Exactly. Especially the ones that love playing on their console but have to play on their portable to play their favorite game. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, console, duh. Picking up this console, now I get to play my favorite game and on a console how I enjoy with people who have the portable still, so I'm not abandoning my entire trope of people.
No, and it's not like how we did it in Monster Hunter 3 where we had to have a blank cartridge on the 3DS to transfer characters back and forth in case you were on the go and wanted to meet somebody else. You can just pick up the Switch and go. And
Yes.
that's awesome.
But
So yeah, Monster Hunter kind of permeated into pop culture, not only in games these days. Like, it's reached to the point where there's comics and a new movie apparently, and like they're doing the whole Monster Hunter Stories game, which is coming out this summer, I think, or late this year. To American shores, it's been out in Japan. There's arcade games. There's merchandise. Like, it's a big pop culture phenomenon now.
Yeah.
There's rumors that character, the Monster Hunter, might be a playable character in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
really,
Yeah.
that'll be exciting.
There was a recently leaked quote unquote list that included the Monster Hunter. Now, who knows, but that'd be great, wouldn't it?
It would, but I'm still partial from my comic standpoint. If he's a character, then I want to see Roland from the Dark Tower be a character, because Marvel has rights with Stephen King's character.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right? And he'd be perfect. He has quasi-magic that's not really magic, but he's a fucking badass gunslinger who's
Right.
been through some crazy shit.
Man, I have a lot of hopes for that movie, but another time.
Yeah, another time for that. So, moving on to other games releasing this month. So we have ARMS, and when does that release, Alex?
June 15th? Maybe?
June 15th? Alright.
Give or take, June 16th.
June 16th? Okay. And we have Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood. Now,
Big expansion. It adds samurais, I believe. So if you're really into the Final Fantasy 14, like the MMO universe and playing in that world, it's going to be something you have to pick up. Like, there's a bunch of really cool stuff going on with it.
yeah, and if you watch the trailer, it's this gigantic fight, this big bloody fight of, like, you know, deceit, full-on power versus power, like, people trying to resist, people trading, like, turning into traitors to one another. Like, it looked awesome. Just the, 5 or 6 minutes of it engrossed me this morning in it.
So those who are into the plot, which there's a pretty interesting plot streaming through most of the major quests. There's some interesting developments going on.
Yeah, this is like a big evolving Final Fantasy game. So if you're into that kind of Final Fantasy world, like, hop in here, because this lets you have a whole different kind of customizability to your player, yourself, and your story that you're playing through. So you still get this great story, but you're not necessarily one person.
14, even though it had a rough start, has kind of become a celebration of the franchise, and those who are playing it are like really into it. I can't get into myself because of the whole subscription-based thing. I don't have the money for it. But if I was into MMOs, this would be the one I would play.
Most likely me too, actually. I kind of strayed away from it because I heard the beginning bombed and it didn't seem well. And then after I noticed they released, what was it, their last release?
Realm Reborn, or the other one?
Realm Reborn.
Heavensward.
When I saw that, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, there's more stuff going on here still. It's
There's
still a game.
dragoons! Dragoons are sweet!
Oh, dragoons. I love them.
Kane is great. Legend of Dragoon is my favorite style of Dragoon, though. That's one of my favorite RPGs.
Oh, man, I haven't
But
seen that.
also coming out this month is the aforementioned Dead by Daylight on console, which is going to be pretty cool because PC communities kind of they have a flash pan. They kind of come and go. But those who start playing on the PC who are really into it will probably be playing for the next 30 years. Like, is it going to pick up? Are we going to see more of that being played across the board? I don't know. We'll see.
I would definitely like to. I mean, that style game, you know, like one side versus another play, it's still being done.
Somebody's
going to
get it right.
Left 4 Dead 2 is still being played on PC. And that's been, what, a decade or so?
That's more of a, yeah, but Left 4 Dead kind of, like, you have 4v4, because you have 4 players playing different zombies that kind of rotate. I think Evolve might have been one of the first, like, early AAA attempts at this style one versus everybody sort of situation.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of picked up through all these other different things. Somebody wants to make a Chucky game I saw recently.
Oh, God.
That's this style. Yeah, like, fuck that. No.
No, I really fucking hate dolls. Like, I thought I was going to be excited by watching, what was it, The Great and Powerful Oz? And then we came to the porcelain town that was all, shattered up, and I was fucking shitting my pants in this theater.
There's something weird about that, right? Like, for me, it's dolls, statues, and puppets. Anything that tries to capture human form that doesn't quite get it, I don't like.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't know.
It's some kind of primal fear. Like, I don't understand. It's got something to do with creationism, and I don't know. But either way, it's weird. So, yeah, I don't know. somebody's going to nail this asymmetric multiplayer thing, and all these experiments are good because eventually that's going to create a game that really stands out.
Yep.
It's kind of like how I feel with games like Destiny and The Division. I don't know what you call that yet. Loot-based shooter, but eventually somebody's going to nail it, and that's going to be awesome.
Yes, and I loved The Division when it came out. Like, the power balance was really hard to do stuff with, but it was very fun.
It was fresh. I liked playing the beginning of it. It got old really quick, though. And I think eventually somebody's going to, like, really capture what makes that style of play interesting and addictive and put it into a world that's actually worthwhile.
Yes. Moving on from this, we also have some other cool anime to check out. And Alex, you wrote down Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blood Orphans?
I just finished it. It's, okay, so in the world of Iron Blooded Orphans, it's a restricted kind of pulled back Gundam world, because we've seen Gundams with, like, crazy wings and lasers and world-crashing magic with G Gundam. Like, we've seen Gundam in a lot of different forms. But this is the first time since, I don't know, probably War in the Pocket or 80th MS Team back in the day that it felt grounded. Like, this is a story about, it's got a lot of death and birth elements into it, which I'd like to discuss kind of in further later on. But, like, for instance, there are no beam weapons, except for in one instance, and when that happens, it's a big deal. They use a lot of bullets. You get, as we talked about last week, you get to see them kind of repair the Gundams and pull back to refuel on ammo. It's a very, like, mechanically based look into the Gundam series, and this is a story that's very mature. It's all about the relationships of the characters, the whole death-birth thing, groups. The politics in it is kind of... It's not nearly as in depth as some of the politics, and it's not as daunting or intimidating, I should say, as previous entries in the series. The politics is kind of interesting. It's got a lot of really good moments. Character death happens frequently, and sometimes it's suddenly. So, and it feels like every time a character dies, something happens to those affected by it. So it's a very mature story, and it's a very tragic story. The mechanic design is super interesting, and I was really blown away by this series. And I've always loved Gundam, but I've not been engrossed by a series in a very long time, and this kind of pulled me back into it.
Yeah, this was, when I watched it and I got to finish it, like, my heart hurt. I was just drawn in by every episode. I was waiting for them to release that day so I could watch it before I did anything else.
Oh, you watched it as it come out. I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
Waiting must have been ridiculous.
Oh, yes, it was terrible. Especially, like, when getting closer to the end, getting those little cliffhangers for what was actually going to be happening was... Oh,
there's a particular episode I want to make a mention of that I don't want to spoil, but whenever a particular character is looking in a store and is immediately killed off at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was I figured something was going to happen somewhere, but I wasn't expecting that.
I was completely like, I don't know if I like checked out halfway through the episode or like I was anticipating a different sort of ending, but when that ending happened, I was like, oh shit, like that's one of the few times I've been surprised that much by anime.
Yes, and the thing was, nobody knew for a minute except for those right there.
Right. Only that small group of characters was affected by it.
Right.
And then, like, the influence slowly spread out.
Mm-hmm. And that changed everything, because people were going about stuff like it never happened. And then they got hit with the wall that it happened, but not just then. It happened before. It's
weird. It's such a grounded take on the series. I don't know, because, like, it doesn't take place in the expanded timelines or anything, but if you think about it in a timeline of, like, technology progression, it's right after Mars has been colonized and terraformed so they can live on Mars. Like, there was a big war. Gundams are kind of a relic of the past. It's crazy.
Definitely highly recommended by both of us. Go check it out. Yeah. You'll get pulled into it. If you are a kind of crier at the emotional things that you watch, bring some tissues and sit down.
Be prepared.
Yeah, sit down for being completely taken over by this anime.
It's interesting because, once again, it's one of the few, like, even if you're not super into Gundam, this is a good place to start.
Yes. Like, it's completely outside of having to follow it from beginning to end.
Now, this other series that you wanted to bring up, Zach, I've heard of, but I don't know anything about. Tell me about Seraph of the End.
Okay, so Owari no Seraph, or Seraph of the End, is about a world in which the world's basically collapsed. This is a supernatural, kind of shonen, kind of not, but it follows the relationship of these two boys from the beginning. I'm not going to spoil a whole ton of anything. Basically, the world fell due to an illness, and 90% of adults were wiped out. All that were left were children who were unaffected, and some elderly folks that were not affected whatsoever. And there were some stray adults here and there, but not hardly anybody. So everybody in this series is extremely young, with the exception of the vampires, who are, 800-900 years plus. But it follows the journey of these two boys trying to escape their whole being held by vampires in the beginning. And it follows one escaping and one either dying or being recaptured. You end up seeing this world that's been completely taken over by, completely ravaged by disease, rebuilding itself. Vampires kind of holding this monstrous, puppet strings over humanity. They don't control everybody, but they control what they control with utter dominance because of them being so much stronger than your average human. They call them progenitors, but basically saying Dracula being the first vampire as an example, and then the ones he turned right underneath of them would be second progenitors. The ones those turned directly beneath them, third progenitors, and that's how they have their hierarchy.
The hierarchy is built like the purer the strain, the stronger they are, I imagine.
Yes, absolutely, and it's it goes so far to the point that as a seventh progenitor, you can't really fight against a fifth. You almost cannot fight against a sixth very well. You can, but the power gap
it'd be rough.
Jumps that much just going up a generation.
Wow.
And you get to see some instances, especially further on, because I've been reading the manga past the anime. You get a hint at some of them actually hiding what progenitor level they are, because there's several that run around saying, I'm like a 15th progenitor, and they're really like a 6th or 7th. Because they don't want people to know that they drank the blood of, whatever progenitor was ahead of them secretly. But you get to see these humans who live completely separate from the vampires. Most of the vampires keep children. And they don't really touch why they keep children specifically. Mm-hmm. But you get to see this power struggle. It's basically very militaristic at this point because the world's just in a war. If the vampires come, they're just trying to kill them or run away and survive. But you see them using taboo powers, and that's where the Seraph of the End for Angels of the End, they're tapping into what they call demonic powers and making these type of demonic pacts to use these weapons. And based on how many taboos they break, they get stronger, but their demon does too, with the ability to take them completely over. So you're getting
the central conflict and then also the internal conflict of making those decisions.
Yeah, and it's as you go, because some of them you have to knowingly break your taboo. It's not something that you would have just done, but you do it on purpose just to give that character does it on purpose to give themselves power. And then sometimes it is that character's absolute goal and mission to do something pure, but that's still breaking a taboo by various things from greed to lust to envy. And that's feeding their internal demon, making them stronger and stronger until one of them may or may not lose control. But later on...
And you can get this on what? Crunchyroll, Funimation? Where's this available at?
Crunchyroll, Funimation. It's available pretty much anywhere. It's really easy to get access to watch. And I recommend it. It's got a slightly slow start, but it sets up the story frame for the characters. And from the characters, it builds upward and outward with the rest of the story. Because...
Oh, okay.
Aside from what I mentioned, there are other monsters in the world that were released with the disease that nobody knows how or why. It's just everything hates humans, and they're trying to survive and get stronger.
The previous series we talked about, Iron Blooded Orphans, it's also on Crunchyroll and Funimation. You can catch the first half in English, or you can watch the entire series in Japanese on Crunchyroll. So those are 3 different options for you.
All right.
Now, what games have you been playing here recently, dude?
I'm still playing Pokemon Go. I'm not out there headhunting every single day, but we have some upcoming events. We have the Fire and Ice event starting June 13th, and it's supposed to be running through the 20th. So there'll be an influx of Fire and Ice Pokemon, as well as releasing into the summer. Lots and lots of updates because we're coming up to the year anniversary of Pokemon Go. Especially on the 20th, all the gyms are going to be shut down for a while.
And it makes sense for the summertime to have these like major events because that's whenever like people want to get outside. They want to do these globally like based things.
Yeah, they don't have anything super global yet, except for in the data mining, we found that it was actually released in the data mining that they have raid on gyms, something about hungry Pokemon, which is predicted to be a way to decay Pokemon off of gyms. Like over time, your Resonators in Ingress would just kind of decay because they didn't have enough power. So your Pokemon will get more and more hungry the longer they're there or the more they fight. So you'd have to come back and feed them periodically.
So you couldn't just, like we do here where there's nobody playing, put a really strong Pokemon and just feed off of what it's making.
Yes.
It kind of balances that.
Yeah, it'll force you to continue to do many, many things, including Niantic wants to stop spoofers from being able to handle gyms. So we're going to hopefully see something about that. But aside from that...
Yeah, because I know cheating is a big problem right now.
Yeah, it's honestly a big thing that's caused a lot of players to really just stray away from it because you could be in the middle of nowhere with that tactic of holding a gym for however long and just, safely tucking yourself away or like fighting off stuff in your town. And then you have a spoofer come in and they're not even there. They just burn through stuff with their computer at home and you've wasted all your time, money, resources, and that's deflating.
That's disheartening.
Yeah,
I mean, that hurts. Yeah.
But other than that, I've been playing Smite, mastering some more gods still. Checking out the Daji god. They're introducing some changes for her in the upcoming patches for console because she's a little underpowered right now. And the upcoming Trials of King Hercules look fantastic.
You were telling me about that before the show. That sounds really interesting. It's like a roguelike style thing.
Yeah, you go in with a party of 3 like you would in a Joust mode, but you play through an ongoing level. So you start off just in the woods somewhere, not on any of the normal Smite maps whatsoever, and you just start fighting jungle monsters. And you keep moving. Most of them are just your typical jungle monster camp, but as you keep going, you see some with the bar. Like, you have that major one that drops the blue buff, or you have like the big Cyclops that drops a red buff. And as you kill them,
and then
you
there's challenges too, like area to area, like the special challenges.
Yeah, because like there's no healing, no buying items, nothing like that when you start. So as you do these little camps, you get gold, some sort of item maybe, and it drops a health mana pot, like the mix pot that you can pick up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you get to pick that up for everybody near you, and it works kind of like a small meditation. And as you keep going, that's how you keep yourself afloat. And then you get to main rooms where you get to fight like this giant boar that spawns boar camps while you're fighting it and throws you out of basically the fight while your friends are being swarmed by boars and it's still fighting and kicking the shit out of you and your buddies until you beat it and move on. There's one... It's
interesting that Smite keep kind of... They keep taking elements from different games. Like they had the whole MMO raid style gladiator tower a couple different times, and now they've got kind of this roguelike inspired dungeon crawler sort of thing. So it's interesting to see how this game develops as like they keep adding new ideas to it, and it works.
Yeah, I thought their dabbling was a little silly at first. I loved the capture the flag, but I thought their attempt at Mario Kart was a little funny and not something I was really interested in when I wanted to sit down and play Smite. But
see, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, they had a Smite Kart, and it was really strange.
Now, the biggest criticism I have for this is these are timed events, right? Like, you can't go back now and play Smite Kart, could you?
Correct. It just ended completely on console, so it's gone and gone. Unless they open it back up later on due to reception, I don't see it being something that comes back.
See, that irks me because I'm all about video game preservation and like keeping an archived kind of form of these kind of game types, because I would love to see them do what they do for Overwatch and open up the arcade section, which is just fun little things like that. Yeah,
I was going to say the same about Rocket League. They have very funny, silly modes that you can play, and it's just on a separate list.
Yep. Because you have a whole community of people that specifically play like hockey in Rocket League or basketball.
I just played hockey for the first time last week and was so confused because I didn't know about it.
It's completely different. Like, the way you played is completely different.
Yep. Lots of
Now,
sitting
what
on
I've
the
been
ground.
playing here recently is I've been working on our backlog of reviews on the Vita, and I always try to have something portable so I can kind of play it on my downtime at work because I have a split shift. So I get a couple hours usually a day to just kind of do whatever. And so I picked up off our backlog list Astric War Phoenix Fiesta. This is based off the Astric War manga and the light novel series. It's weird because it's like a 3D fighting game, kind of like the Naruto series of a lot of the Naruto games, I guess I should say, where you kind of just fight a character in a 3D arena and you run around and do special attacks and stuff. But it's a really, really watered down version of that. There's a basic attack, a heavy attack, a special attack, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's no ridiculous combos. There's no even way to like interrupt a combo. And this is all tied together in the story mode with like this really poorly done dating sim where like the dates are actually just a set script and they rarely change. Like there's maybe three or four different types of date per character, and you kind of have to just replay those over and over again to progress your relationship. And it's repetitive and it's boring, and I gave it a 4. It's horrible.
Oh.
I don't recommend it. Phoenix Fiesta, or I don't know. It sucks. In the other anime space, I'm still grinding away at Persona 5. It's amazing. The characters are really well written. Most of the dialogue is really well written. Even the fluff kind of stuff just kind of is well done. I'm finally getting to the point where like I can go into the randomly generated dungeons and like grind and do the battles as much as I want to. And I'm on like the 3rd palace, and the dungeons keep getting more interesting, and the villains keep getting more interesting and more personal. And I just love what they're doing with each of the characters. And the presentation, of course, is off the charts. The music is fantastic. Like, it is probably one of the best examples of JRPG tropes done right. And it's impressive. My only complaint about Persona 5 is I can't take it with me. If they put it on Switch or Vita, I would give it a 10 out of 10. But I think it's going to be slightly less because I just can't. I can't take it with me. And it's one of those games that like you can sink a lot of time into it, but it's like you can do it in chunks. So it makes a lot of sense for it to be a portable title. Other than that, I've been doing some Overwatch play with my buddy Ben and Eli, my roommate Eli, and then my good friend Ben, who will pop in and play PC games with me every now and again. And that's just hilarious because Ben is a very funny person. He always says things like in moderation to the point that it's hilarious. And he like only curses when that's appropriate. He always goes for maximum like hilarity. And then other than that, I just picked up because I haven't been buying games here recently because I'm preparing for the move to Alaska. But I did break down and buy Risk of Rain from Limited Run. It's one of my favorite roguelikes. It was one of the first games I got on PC, and now I'm playing it on Vita, and I've completed a couple runs, and it's awesome. That game's great. I love Risk of Rain.
Yes, I finally sat down and played a couple times. I lost several hours of my life to it, actually. I didn't realize how long I was playing, and I finally beat it once or twice myself.
I've gotten more characters than I did before, too. So I beat the game with the Bandit and the Riot Shield guy, and I think the normal Gunner main character. But I'm interested to unlock the other characters and just keep kind of rolling with it. And then I'll go into multiplayer, I think. Because there is that co-op multiplayer element as well.
Yeah, I think I beat it with the guy with the big mech hands.
Oh, I think I beat it with him too, actually. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his class name, though.
Yeah, he's the only one I've beat it with, though. Alright guys, episode 2 has come to a close. Be on the lookout for a much sooner to be released episode 3 in the next few days, and our upcoming recording of episode 4, which will be the E3 post-show and reactions. Music this week was Ultra Lounge by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. We hope you're excited as we are. So long days and pleasant nights, my friends.